In the shadowy streets of Victorian London, the legend of Jack the Ripper became synonymous with terror. But few know that his story didn't end with his crimes. Years later, in 1899, a young investigator named Henry Warren grew obsessed with solving the case that Scotland Yard had declared unsolvable. His days and nights were consumed with theories, suspects, and maps of Whitechapel's blood-soaked alleyways. The trail was cold, but Henry believed that Jack's spirit lingered, waiting to be unearthed. One night, after hours poring over old police reports, Henry received an unsigned letter. The parchment was old, frayed, and splattered with dark stains he hoped weren't blood. In crimson ink, the message read, "Come to Miller's Court at midnight, alone. Jack awaits." Ignoring the chill creeping up his spine, Henry ventured out. The streets were empty, save for the occasional flickering lamplight casting eerie shadows on cobbled stones. Miller's Court had been abandoned for years, left untouched since the infamous murder of Mary Jane Kelly, Jack's final victim. As he stepped into the courtyard, the cold air stilled, as if frozen in time. The walls were damp, smeared with streaks of mold and what looked disturbingly like claw marks. Henry shuddered, but he couldn't turn back. In the dim light, he noticed faint footprints leading to a door. It was ajar, swinging gently as though someone or something had been waiting for him. The inside was, as he had imagined from the grisly reports. Dust-coated furniture, a single blood-stained sheet draped over the bed, and the lingering stench of death. But the room was unnervingly cold, and as Henry looked around, he realized he wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the darkness, his silhouette barely discernible. Henry's breath caught as he recognized the distinctive attire of a long coat and top hat, just as eyewitnesses had described. The man's face was hidden, but his eyes glowed faintly, twin embers of malice that seemed to pierce the very fabric of Henry's soul. "You came to find Jack," the figure whispered, his voice like the rustle of dead leaves, echoing around the small, confined room. "But Jack has found you." Paralyzed, Henry felt a sudden pressure around his throat. An invisible force lifted him off the ground and he gasped for breath as the room seemed to close in. The figure approached, revealing a face twisted and scarred, his lips curled into a smile that was more nightmare than human expression. "Why did you search for me?" Jack sneered, his voice dripping with a dark amusement. "Some things are better left buried." The cold intensified, and Henry felt an unbearable weight settle on his chest, as if the sins of the past were crashing down upon him. In that final suffocating moment, he understood. Jack the Ripper's darkness had never left these streets. His spirit had been waiting, feeding off those who dared to remember, trapping them within the shadow of his own undying horror. The next morning, police found Henry's lifeless body in Miller's Court, his face frozen in terror, and scrawled across the walls in fresh blood were the chilling words, "The Ripper walks again." To this day, those who dare to investigate Jack's story find themselves haunted, as though the killer himself lurks in the shadows, forever waiting for his next victim.